Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race, where unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, Christopher Bell has scored his first All-Star win. I believe his first All-Star win. I know he won at Charlotte last year, although the venue has moved on since then. But pulling off the victory ahead of Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman, and Chase Elliott, unofficially your top five as we await for the results from post-race inspection. We'll talk about the action in both the main event and the open race. We'll also get into the Truck Series event from yesterday. We'll kind of catch up on everything from this weekend. So kind of first and foremost, I got to say, I really thought the open race was very solid in this one. I found that one very enjoyable, and I thought the main event wasn't bad. And I liked that they did a lot fewer gimmicks. I mean, obviously, there's one major exception to it that almost kind of single-handedly made up for it. However, it's I liked that it felt more like another progressive step towards a full 400-lap race there, which the broadcast crew seemed well in agreement with there. They were almost explicitly saying about the potential of a 400-lap race there, a points-paying race, getting the full field out there, having lap traffic be a factor. I agree. I think that would be thrilling. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. I don't know how far along we are on that discussion, but hopefully we'll find out more information on that shortly too. It was, it was fine. It was fine. I mean, I'm not going to say this was, I wouldn't say it was a terrible race. I mean, I think it was certainly better. It's probably the best of the three at Wilkesboro so far. I think that's pretty safe to say. I like that we had a bit of complexity to it where the race was a long enough distance that you could kind of see tire fall off and people trying different strategies. I liked that there was kind of some semblance of passing. I think they were very much overhyping like how many times the lead change actually happened, because it seemed like passing was so difficult out there. You had people many times running into each other and like banging doors, which is, something you want to see in stock car racing. It's one of the things that makes the sport, special and unique. And so it's good to certainly see that. But at the same time, you still want to see, the cars, actually just, just bounce off each other and keep going. You want to see them kind of like hanging on and being able to barely maintain control. We did get a step towards that direction. One thing I couldn't help but think for a lot of this race was how much it reminded me of the dirt track races at Bristol, where you had, people kind of sliding up the track, kind of trying different grooves and kind of skating around a little bit. Not completely out of control, but not all just following the same line and you can't get anywhere. I think the Wilkesboro track has a nice combination of the very, very short straightaways you see at Bristol and the long, very wide corners with multiple grooves in them, like you have at Richmond. I think it's a good kind of compromise between the two of them there. On top of that, so it makes for a very interesting track. But again, I do think it lends itself to having longer distance races and really being able to see the drivers actually able to compete that much there. So, overall, I thought it was a solid enough race. I think that it was interesting to see Christopher Bell kind of negotiate his way through the field and get up there at the end and be able to get around Joey Logano. I agree with kind of the consensus from the booth that it seemed like even if that caution, the promoter's caution, didn't come out at the end, then I think he probably would have had the measure of the 22 there at the end. It would have been interesting to see, especially given the fact that Bell had run into Noah Gragson leaving his pit stall. He also got shuffled up the track, made contact with Harrison Burton in turns 1 and 2. Seemed like those right side tires were getting a lot of damage out there, in spite of the fact that they were fresher tires than the other drivers around him there. And that was going to make things pretty close and competitive towards the end of the event. That's kind of why I felt like speaking out about that caution for Riley Herbst in the open race, where it just really didn't need to happen. I know the fact that it did happen, again, made the tire strategy interesting at the end. Ultimately got the Legacy Motor Club cars up there at the end of that event. But again, I think that, one of the best things in stock car racing is when you have drivers that are almost out of control and they're running into each other and they're sliding around and they don't bring out a caution. Like, they're just able to keep going. Obviously, if there's debris, somebody spins into traffic or something like that, that's a different situation. But if they're running into each other and just, scattering around and maintaining control, I'd say keep the green flag out and just see what happens next. And then, yeah, somebody cuts down a tire or something, then yeah, you got to re-examine it at that point. But I get why people probably, didn't care that too much about it either, because it's the All-Star race. So I could see that there at the same time. NASCAR fan 93-100, happy birthday. I see your comment there as well. Yeah, so again, I think a pretty solid race. I think it was pretty enjoyable. And I think, as usual in NASCAR, and especially in Fox here at the end of it, the comedy aspect is always there. The things that just make the sport just ridiculous are still really entertaining. And I think that was definitely another aspect that we saw in this one here, and certainly the Michael Waltrip one. And again, I pointed this out on social media, and I stand by it there. Michael Waltrip in the booth, probably more than anything, yeah, he's been somebody that's always very positive about NASCAR and every decision they make, and they can't do anything wrong. And the other thing is, like, he wants a late race caution. He's going to talk endlessly about it. All those truck races and any other broadcasts he's been in, especially in recent years, he just ramps up on it. And as much as I liked his fit, I agree with Harris Liu on this. He had the great, the Winston jacket, the backwards baseball cap. That was cool and everything. But, the whole pantomime about waiting for the caution to come out and trying to involve the audience, look, it's the audience is going to want a late race caution, whatever it's going to be. I was almost kind of thinking, as this was playing out, that they're going to wait too long, and it was going to be past the 220 mark, and they weren't going to be able to throw the caution at all. Ultimately, it didn't turn out to be the case. They threw the caution flag, and then fireworks came off. I mean, can you believe it? The most NASCAR on Fox moment that could have possibly happened, and I'm sure it was by accident, that they weren't going to have like fireworks go off because of this late race promoter's caution. Maybe it was. If it was intentional, the person behind it has a wonderful sense of humor, and I want to meet that person. But I have a feeling it was an accident because they probably had two buttons right next to each other, maybe just, hit one by mistake. Although it did seem like they had plenty of fireworks for the end of the race in like a different location there. But yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Having a situation there where just, again, I talked about this in my opinion videos a while back, this obsession with the caution flag and restarts, that we can't just enjoy green flag racing. And I know it feels silly talking about this in the All-Star race where it's entirely about entertainment, and this should be the exception. But I mean, it's so much the norm. Like, was it really that different from having this promoter's caution than having stage cautions in the, regular Cup Series, Point Series races, or anything else like that during the year, debris cautions or overreactions that bring out caution flags? That's the thing. This used to feel like something very different from the rest of the season. Watching the old races at Charlotte and seeing everybody drive way over their heads and just driving really aggressively and like wrecking each other in like 30-lap sprints. Very, very different from how people would race each other, knowing when they go into turn one that there's 500 miles ahead of them and they can't be doing that stuff. This is just, again, it's kind of a celebration of how much, I guess, has leached into the main points events these days from the All-Star race. And, again, some better than others, whether you want to talk about the choose cone that doesn't get painted over, and so Ryan Preece can't see it, or the double file restarts, and then having somebody up there with two tires, or no tires, just get run over by everybody through the field, or the crash clock where, Daniel Suarez goes behind the wall and he's pretty much out of the race with toe link damage there. Little pieces of everything along the way there too. Mike Joy mentioned the fireworks early in the race. Okay, he did. Okay. No, that's funny. That's good. I like that they did it. I mean, that's okay. Now, again, I want to meet the person that came up with the idea for that, because I thought that was hysterical. When that happened, because it felt like a mistake. That was just so funny to me. And then to have Michael Waltrip drop the caution flag on top of it, I'm sure from just this overexcitement about, oh my gosh, you got this promoter's caution and it's going to turn this race completely on its head, and the person in 19th place is going to win this race. It's like, no, calm down. It's not going to happen. What happened at the end was what was probably going to happen anyway, that you got Christopher Bell up there. He was driving a fantastic race. He got tires at the right time and was working his way up there. And the Penske guys with their synchronized swerve back onto the track, as impressive as that looked, it just wasn't the right call, especially from what happened with Kyle Larson on the restart before that and how quickly he got run over out there. Yes, you want track position, but Larson himself, again, one of the best teams, unstoppable at Kansas, a couple weeks ago, and Bristol before that. He comes out there in this race here and he just gets clobbered. And much like Denny Hamlin implied during his podcast not long ago, they're mortal. If they get back in traffic, then, it could be an even fight again. And that was very much the situation here. So, once Joey Logano got in front of Larson, then that changed that. And then you had that situation with the tires at the end there too. So again, it was good to see some strategy play out. Again, it just makes you want more. It makes you want a longer race. It makes you want cars that are harder to handle, high horsepower, low downforce. Again, and just really kind of show, how challenging this track is and how much of an endurance match it's been traditionally. You got drivers, falling out of this race from fatigue or running out of tires. That's the thing that really kind of needs to be kind of hammered home here. And I'll tell you what, if they ever do a points paying race there, I definitely want to be there to see it and cover it. Hopefully we don't have as much problems with our credentials like we did last month for our trip there. Because I would love to do that. That would be tremendous. And you go in the infield, you basically have to stay there or wait for the gate to open. Fine. That sounds great to me. It'll be really exciting to see how all that plays out. So maybe one of these days, that'll be something to kind of figure out down the line. Again, kind of happy to be back on the stream here. Well, not kind of happy to be back, very much happy to be back. I apologize for those of you who kind of hung in with me on the Kansas show last week. I talked about Texas there a bit, and my voice sounded bad. I know it still sounds a little rough here today, but we're getting on the the upper end of it. I just got that perfect sweet spot between the cold I had back at Talladega and then allergy season starting up here this week. But what I'm hopeful of is I'd like to do the live stream talking about Talladega this week. I'm thinking maybe on Tuesday. We'll see how things kind of go after the show tonight. This is going to be kind of an effort to figure things out. But I think that'll be a good way to look at it from there. So we'll have more information on that pretty soon. Yeah. Oh, thank you, folks. Let me just get some water here in just a moment. We'll jump more into this event and the open race as well. All right. See, it sounds a little better, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, hopefully way better. Let's see here. Let's go into looking at the back of the field here as well. So again, Daniel Suarez ends up being your last place finisher from today's race in the main event. The fourth time the 99 has finished last, the first since 2012 with Carl Edwards. First time Suarez has been last in the main event. After everything that happened and the heat races and qualifying and the Pit Route Championship and everything else this weekend, the story of the last place finisher is fairly open and shut. You had the back of the field there with John Hunter Nemechek transferring into the main event. The other drivers, Kyle Larson back there with the driver change after his events in Indianapolis. And then you had Nemechek at the back of the field there for a good portion of the event. Getting past Harrison Burton in the back, and then Suarez blowing a tire off of turn 2, bouncing off the outside wall, and then Suarez ends up being your last place finisher. Team tried to make repairs, good efforts for them, but a lower control arm there was just bent out in such a way that it was rubbing the tire. They had smoke coming off the right front, and at that point they're about 4 laps down. Usually in an all-star race, especially when it was back at Charlotte, the team has any kind of amount of damage out there, they're really not going to want to keep going. And especially an event where you saw an open race where everybody finished on the lead lap, really made that doubly so. So Suarez ends up being unofficially, again, pending the results of post-race inspection tonight, your last place finisher, so he should be the feature for that. Brad Keselowski won the pole, however, got involved in an incident himself, was smashed into the outside wall, and some heavy damage there. For the number 6. So bad luck continues again for Keselowski and that 6 team. I don't know what ladder they've walked under this year. Obviously it's been a long build up to when they won Darlington last year. And we've seen sometimes, like this weekend where they've shown some speed. And Ryan Preece has very much joined the party. He could have easily made it into the main event if it weren't for the choose cone situation in the Open. You know, and again, same deal there with his teammate Chris Buescher in the 10th spot. But hopefully things turn around. You know, I mean, it was interesting to hear the booth talk about the All-Star race kind of being a turnaround for people having difficult starts to the year. You know, I've usually viewed maybe more like in the June, you know, kind of in the summer season that sometimes people turn things around. Tony Stewart was famous for this. That usually didn't turn around until winning at Sears Point or Daytona in July. A couple of races he was always a factor in. Kyle Busch, very similar, such as a season where he was injured and then came back. Kind of a similar deal there. But again, yeah, mentioning drivers that won the championship after winning the All-Star race. It's kind of interesting to see that trend there at the same time. However, a very different story this time around here. Keselowski in the 22nd spot. Kyle Larson in 21st. Toe link issue there on the right rear after bouncing off the outside wall, trying to run on old tires. Just wasn't the right strategy. He needed to get the track position. Was only able to get up to about 9th spot there after the driver change penalty. And the fact that Justin Allgaier didn't start the heat race. Still a difficult situation, but, you know, making the most under the circumstances. Harrison Burton and John Nemechek rounding out the bottom 5 there at the same time. Looking through more of the field here. We do have to get into talking about the Open race here as well. But, yeah, again, it's going to be, it's hard to tell how much, you know, bearing to take off of this race here. But again, yeah, seeing Larson struggle shows that he's a bit human. That he's not completely unstoppable as it sometimes seems like at Kansas or Bristol. And again, in this situation here, you know, even as much as I'm sure he's used to starting at the back of the field and marching forward on the dirt tracks, didn't quite work in this case here. Really only could get up to about 9th or 10th spot and then had to do that strategy at the end. And it was really a desperation move that ultimately didn't pay off. And the Michael Waltrip caution came out a little bit too late for him. And he ends up at, back in the pack. I'm glad Harrison Burton was in the race. You think back to a couple years ago, or I guess just last year, really, that Shane Van Gisbergen was not in the All-Star race, even though he was eligible to start. I believe Steve Toronto did a great job bringing a diecast of the 91 car out and put him in the back of the field, where he should have been in that field for that particular race there. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. Trackhouse just couldn't get something coordinated or whatever the situation was. But it's good to see Harrison Burton get in this race, even though he didn't have a cup ride this year. Kudos to Rick Ware Racing for giving him a ride in the 51. I know it wasn't a spectacular race for him there. He was in and around the top 10 at one point with the strategy that was working out, but ultimately ends up kind of back in the order here. But it was good to see it because that Daytona win was tremendous, and especially coming into this year with the Wood Brothers 75th anniversary, with the Woods already in the race, with Josh Berry for his own win at Las Vegas this year, getting his first win. Having the Wood Brothers be part of the opening ceremonies there, being in the pace car, having John Wood do the command, and again, Michael Waltrip, even with his deal there with the Winston jacket, being part of waving the caution flag there. It was good to see them getting featured a lot there. Josh Berry, speaking of which, ended up back in the 17th spot there. Not really a factor, although a nice paint scheme. I like the upgrade of the 1996 Sitco paint job there, kind of integrated with his partners there. As much as I'm not a fan of the numbers being moved forward, especially from the roof of the car, it looked really nice. It looked like a die cast from up there, which I really liked. So that was a good story there at the same time. But again, some moments with some good battles up there. A lot of people just banging fenders and, you know, again, able to keep going with how rigid this car is and putting that to the test. And again, Christopher Bell doing another thing to hopefully get more fans' attention. He's definitely one that's always overlooked. When you talk about the championship, when you talk about somebody, you know, winning a lot of races, and now we have another season where he's won a lot of races and won this. And, you know, again, people still making their championship predictions with whoever else is up there, whether it's William Byron or Kyle Larson or somebody not driving for Hendrick. You know, again, he's one that he's going to have to be reckoned with when we get towards the end of this season. So we'll find out what the story is going to be there too. I have to say, I really enjoyed the open race here at the same time. Let me get that pulled up here in this one. So looking back at that, first of all, right from the top of the field there, Carson Hocevar, great effort for him. He was one of the favorites for the fan vote. Not sure where he would have worked out there because he ultimately didn't need the spot there, getting the win. John Hunter Nemechek, I was so thrilled for him there in the Legacy Motor Club. This was very reminiscent to me of what we had back in the last chance qualifier for the Clash back at the almost said at the Coliseum, back at Bowman Gray Stadium, rather. If you remember back there, the last chance qualifier, both Legacy Motor Club cars were right up there in the mix. John Hunter was battling in and around the top 5. Eric Jones looked like he was going to actually get the win in that last chance qualifier and make it into the event. And this was very reminiscent of that. You know, they had some strategy at the end, both of them kind of working their way to the front and kind of figuring things out, kind of outlasting them. Even though they didn't have the greatest starting spots, John Hunter started 8th and Eric Jones started 12th in a field of 18. Again, I thought they both did a great job out there. Bubba Wallace was a very difficult car for both of them to pass. Of course, Bubba was just hanging on, trying to get that second spot and try to transfer into the main event himself, and I'm sure he would have put on a good show there. In there, I believe he did well, and he wasn't second to Larson in the first North Wilkesboro one. He was right up there in the mix, but unfortunately, just didn't quite work out for him. Bubba ends up back in the 8th spot, but John Hunter did a beautiful move on him there, working through turns 1 and 2. Eric Jones getting into Bubba, and then both of them bouncing off the wall. Jones actually getting into the outside wall pretty good off turn 4, so it's pretty amazing. He still got a 4th place finish out of the open there. But John Hunter and Hocevar transferring in, absolutely thrilled for both of them. Hocevar has had a really just a breakout year this year. He's had races like at Talladega and Bristol where he's just been up there and actually contending for the lead or leading several laps, just not quite working out at the closing stages of it. Doesn't get the raw finish to show for it. This is another thing that's going to be just right on the path. I mean, it reminds me so much of when Jerry Nadeau or Steve Park were up there like battling for the win in the open and then being able to win their first races later that season. I would predict that Hocevar probably is on that very same track, especially for how good Spire Motorsports in general has been this year. So that's going to be something to certainly look forward to. Noah Gragson getting transferred in by the fan vote. That was certainly a bit surprising. I know he's been in there the last couple of years. I don't know what his fans are able to figure out or how many fans he has. I know he has a lot of them, and I know he's very passionate, and he's always keeps the fans involved. And I guess that's all you really need to do to make sure to do it. But I'm still surprised that he was leading the group there. I don't know how much they were still dealing with the same power steering issue that they had in the Open in the main event. He did finish next to last in the Open, but was able to transfer into the main event there. But again, and it's pretty amazing too. I think the thing that needs to be brought up with the Gragson deal is he's now driven for 3 different teams in these different Open races. When we went from Legacy Motor Club, and then he went over to Stuart Haas, and now this year with the Front Row Motorsports, completely different organizations, gets voted in each time. You know, it's one thing if you're Chase Elliott and your iconic brand is the number 9 and you're in the Hendrick car and everybody knows, you know, what your branding is and all that. But for fans to follow this driver from team to team and still keep voting him in there, that's got to be worth something. So again, I'm not really upset about that or anything like that. I think that's great. I think that shows I think if anything, that shows even more how dedicated his fans are to not mind having to buy different merch each year because he's going to be driving for a different team. So that's one thing to see there at the same time. But Chad Fincham ends up being your last place finisher, but finished on the lead lap. He did lose a lap in the opening stages there. Then you had Todd Gilliland lose 2 laps from an unscheduled stop. Both those drivers got their laps back. Gilliland, I guess, got the wave around because he only got 1 lucky dog, but he got back up there and finished the 12th spot. Yeah, and I thought the battles up there were great. I loved the battles that Carson Hocevar and Michael McDowell had side by side, smoking some fenders up there. Ty Dillon was not happy with Zane Smith after the race. Zane responding on social media was very interesting, saying like, who's going to be kicking whose butt there. So, again, I think it's going to be, it's interesting to see the way these drivers play off each other. But Ty Dillon himself, as much as I'm sure he's upset that he wasn't able to transfer into the main event, I think the 3rd place finish he had is another, really outstanding effort. That colleague effort for all the struggles they've had with the engine program this year. And we've seen this, of course, last week with AJ Allmendinger, and he had, the ECR you guys suck thing over the radio. We've seen this with Chandler Smith a lot in the Xfinity series, or not Chandler Smith, Christian Eckes, rather, in the Xfinity series most recently in their last race there, had an engine failure in there as well. Ty Dillon, for whatever reason, in that 10 car, has just been right in the mix in some of these. He was up there in his dual race at Daytona. He almost got a top 10 when we were out at Talladega until he ran out of fuel. He was very good at Phoenix, I believe. He was like about 12th or 13th up there. And now in this one gets a third place finish in this. I know it's an exhibition race, but again, much like what I mentioned with back in Bowman Gray and seeing Legacy Motor Club turn things around. And now here we are, John Hunter Nemechek goes into the 600 next week. He has just as many top fives through this first third of the season. We haven't even got to the first third of the season. We'll have that next week in the 600. He has just as many top 10s already that he had all of last year. Now, if that's not improvement, I don't know what is. So, hopefully he's able to keep that momentum up through the summer and just be as strong as ever. So there's a lot of drivers kind of in this upper middle tier, like Legacy Motor Club, like Ty Dillon at Colleague, and especially Spire Motorsports, that I hope are going to be really, really big stories through the summer and into the fall this year, because I think they're going to be really exciting. And I think this race was a good example of it too. Now, one driver I haven't mentioned in the equation of all this is, of course, Shane Van Gisbergen, who looked fantastic out there. Yes, he had clean air, and he had the pole, so he was able to get up there and take full advantage of it. But he did. He stayed up there, and he built a good lead, and that's the best we've seen the 88 car run anywhere all this year. Really, probably one of the best ways we've seen Trackhouse run, honestly, all year for whatever has been going on there with their 3-car effort. So kudos to Van Gisbergen for putting on a good show out there. I know it wasn't the finish that he wanted. Some tire strategy or just whatever worked out there at the end just wasn't the best for him. However, again, I think he's got a lot to feel very positive about. We're not too far from getting back to the road courses here again. And maybe some of the ovals that he's more comfortable with. And we'll see how that shakes out for him. So best of luck to him as well. And Ryan Preece, this was definitely the big penalty call controversy in that race. Touched on this a little bit earlier. Ryan Preece was very, very fast in that RFK Racing entry. It looked like he was going to have a shot at least at getting the transfer spot, if not overall the win. Had an interesting paint scheme there with the Boston Common Golf paint job out there. And was looking very good. But he was the only driver, and admittedly, the only driver who ran over the choose box there on the front stretch. But he was pointing out, that you couldn't see it. You couldn't see it very clearly. Now, I know it was very quickly pointed out, and rightfully so, that there are some banners up on the wall there that show where the choose cone is. But the important thing, there's a couple of issues with that. You don't want to just depend on that, because think about if you're driving behind the wheel and there's a box that's right in the middle of the track and you got to go left or right, and you got to go around it there. If your sign, if you can't see that in the road, and it was clear that they couldn't see it because they had to repaint it. There were other drivers out there that were verifying that, it was really hard to see. Are you going to look to the right? That's just another distraction on top of it. Say you're coming off turn 4 and you're looking for the box and you're like wondering where it is. And maybe you glance up and you see the flag there. By the time you look up there, you've already run over that box. I pretty much guarantee you that. If you haven't, you certainly don't have time between seeing that flag, then, the impulse is going back and then figuring out to go left or right. And then, choosing which lane you're going to choose on top of it. That's a lot happening at the same time. And maybe this is something that, needs to be kind of looked at for other races at the same time. It's just making sure that, you can see the choose cone at the same time there. Because, it ruined his race. I mean, the race is 100 laps, but having it, occur so late in the event there, it completely ruined his race, and he didn't have a chance at being able to compete up there. So I don't blame him for being frustrated, and, it's something else to look at. I think we just had so much action this weekend between, the late models and the modifieds and the truck series and then everything with the Cup series here. You're just going to get a whole lot of tire marks on there, but, maybe you got to send out a guy with a paint can under caution there to make sure that, he can still see it. So I don't know. I don't know what the best solution is. I don't think you probably want to have it be a bump or anything out there because, you got issues of safety or whatever there. But it's just an unfortunate situation he got caught up in. And I don't blame him for being frustrated about it because I think he has every right to be. Again, it ended up being the decision for his race there. Riley Herbst, after bouncing off the outside wall, again, I don't think they should have had a caution for that. I get it's the all-star race and you want to throw a caution for everything. And ultimately, does that really matter? No, it doesn't. But, again, I think I would have just as soon seen people continue to run each other over and keep going until somebody actually does crash, and then you throw the caution. I think that's kind of the way to kind of approach that. But, we'll see if that's something kind of gets looked at going forward. I just touched on Chad Fincham there. Again, mentioning him finishing on the lead lap. Good to see the Aries Tech Company coming on board there with Garage 66. Apparently, they're going to sponsor Fincham at Nashville again next month, which is the race after the 600 next week. So it's good to see them cobble together some other sponsors for various drivers that are coming over into that ride there as well. So very exciting to see. But yeah, I thought the Open was, very exciting. Open usually is exciting. One of Gregson's fan votes was that one where he had damage to the nose of his car and he was writing thank you fans on the nose of the car or whatever it was. So that was a pretty good deal there at the same time. Let's see. Excuse me. Going into the Truck Series race here, Chandler Smith with a dramatic victory there at the checkered flag. I didn't watch this race altogether. I was out at the World Strongman competition with Lastbro. He's a big fan of that, so we were checking that out in Sacramento, which is not far here from LastCar headquarters. But I was able to listen to the scanner audio during the race, and the last place battle was very interesting. A lot of chaos there between both Derek White, who was making his first Truck Series start since 2014, and Norm Benning, who was making his first truck start since Rockingham a few races ago, and was running the same truck that was flagged off the track for not maintaining minimum speed at Rockingham. So they were taking some effort to try to get that truck ready and put together a better effort here this week around. But it seemed like both those drivers were just struggling awfully at the very beginning of it. Derek White was getting told by his team to be able to drive harder through the center of the corner, and was at one point warned about his minimum speed. At least happened a couple times, because about near the halfway point, he ultimately was black flagged off the track for running too slow. But Norm Benning himself had several problems out there. Truck was way too loose. Couldn't get a good hold of it there. Had to make several pit stops about the same time that Derek White was doing it. Norm was coming down pit road at one point. Had to serve a pass-through penalty. The pass-through penalty got bumped to the end of stage 1 on lap 70. And then before they were going to serve that penalty, ended up going back to the garage area. The crew able to look over the truck, but really didn't get back out on the speedway at that point. And unfortunately, it ended up being his second straight last place finish in as many starts. It's a difficult stretch for him. I'm not sure what his next start is going to be. I know Pocono is one he usually circles on his calendar, being a home track. But we'll find out if that's going to be a story there as well. But Derek White, it's good to see Derek back in the race at all. Again, mentioning his first start in the Truck Series since 2014, first in NASCAR since 2016. Kind of an interesting story. I believe he's turned it into a documentary, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the name of it. But Derek White was suspended indefinitely from NASCAR about allegations, something about transportation of tobacco. But of course, Derek White, being a member of the Mohawk Indian tribe, there's very different rules that apply there, especially as to the transportation of tobacco products there and the significance of that to certain tribes. That ended up being an issue in the case. I'm surprised it didn't come up much earlier. It took all the way until about late last year for the case to actually kind of get thrown out and saying, well, look, it really doesn't apply in this case. I don't even know why it was here. So an unfortunate deal, but good to see him back at the track. The OCR Gasmart sponsorship back on board, which was very interesting too. Big thanks to Sebastian LaForge, former member over at the Carl Long's Cup Series effort there, bringing up that the OCR Gas Bar is actually Derek White's gas station that he operates on the reservation that he belongs to there, which is really interesting. So it is more of a kind of not really an external sponsor, but his brand there as well. So that's really cool to see there as well. I couldn't help. It's kind of interesting because if you kind of go a little bit further back, especially in the history of All-Star Weekend, there was one driver you may recall I mentioned in 500 Days, a guy named Eric Jones, not the Eric Jones, of course, in Legacy Motor Club. This driver, actually, his first name is spelled E-R-I-C. He was also a Native American competing in NASCAR and also had logos for his gas station as a sponsor on his car. He drove the 49 car, and I believe it was 96 and 97. and it was the Express 49 station. I believe he still operates it today. But again, very similar story to what happened with Derek White. I mean, he wasn't suspended or having the lawsuit or all that happening. But again, kind of an interesting connection there with Native American competitors in NASCAR. It's not entirely unprecedented with Derek White there too. So kind of a little bit of a story. I might do something more on that. That's one other project I've kind of had in the works, but we'll see what comes together on that. Ryan Roulette ends up being your 32nd place finisher. Good to see Spencer Boyd bring out his second truck once again. Tyler Thomasy and Jason Alexander rounding out the bottom five. Jason Alexander made his debut at Milwaukee last year, got a last place finish after an accident. This is the same race that Lane Riggs won his first Truck Series event in. Ryan Roulette, we saw him at Martinsville. He got a last place finish there after an accident off of turn 4 that damaged his truck. So both of them kind of having a shorter day as well. Tyler Thomasy was the one that was driving LE Productions entry in the Xfinity Series and unfortunately did not qualify at Bristol, but he did have a good run with a logo at Martinsville, or not Martinsville, in the Truck Series race at Bristol, getting in just outside the top 20. So good effort there as well. So again, just showing that there's a lot of stories at the back of the field there. But obviously, the big story is, of course, the battle there at the end. Corey Heim looks like he had this race very, very well in hand. But as what happens so often here, you have a late race restart. And if you think back to how Jeff Bodine won the race in 1989 in the Cup Series, you could probably see the very high possibility of having a very physical outcome to the race there. And that's ultimately what happened. You had a tangle between Lane Riggs and Corey Heim. Heim spins out. Chandler Smith comes through, only leads the final lap of the race. And Chandler Smith breaks through and actually wins a Truck Series race before his teammate this year, which is surprising. Lane has been so close to scoring wins this year. Heim, of course, not happy with Lane after the race. They're confronted on pit road. Bit of an altercation there afterwards, just a battle of words, rather. But again, Lane, a very aggressive driver, but Corey Heim, aggressive in his own right at the same time. And who knows, that could be part of the championship battle when we get down to Phoenix at the end of this year. But I thought a very solid race. I was kind of going into the Open and the main event tonight thinking, like, how many times do we have to have, like, points races in the Truck Series that are just exhilarating, just like the best race of the weekend? Great racing with late models and modifieds. Yes, a bit of crashes at the same time, especially at the start of the race. I know there's a lot of people talking about that. But, you know, racing that's just very physical and very engaging, where the Cup Series, you got people bouncing off each other, then just drivers just keep going. You know, it's a very different type of racing with this different competitors out there. And I think it just kind of lends itself to a different kind of competition. But again, I thought the All-Star race tonight was solid. I think in spite of the gimmicks there, I'm glad the gimmicks were at least to a minimum. At least there were fewer of them, but they were just more spectacular and their gimmickry, I guess you could say. But the Truck Series race at North Wilkesboro is, again, I think another outstanding event. And I'm glad that there's been this mounting call for having not just the Cup Series run 400 lap races here again, but also bringing the Xfinity Series out here. My goodness, the Xfinity Series running at this track would feed generations. It would be absolutely a thrill to watch, especially after what we saw at Rockingham. Just from coming back from that event there, they put on just such a wonderful show that weekend. The crowd was really into it. I think even if you can't quite get the Cup Series there, if you get the Xfinity and Truck Series there at least, and you put on that kind of weekend with the same support events, I mean, it's going to be a massive event, on one week to the next year. And you don't need the All-Star race there too. I mean, that's always kind of the discussion is like, kind of going back into the Cup Series side of things. What is the future of the All-Star race? What is the role it's had? In recent years, it's been the test subject for things that got brought into the Cup Series, double file restarts, or moving the number around on the cars, or the choose cone, or anything else that kind of gets brought in. I guess choose cone came up a little bit differently, but there's been different programs, stages, segment racing really came from the All-Star race as well. It's always been the kind of the trial period for that. But I think NASCAR has always changed its rules so much. Do you really need the All-Star race to serve that function? They seem pretty comfortable in just, having a race kind of serve as that guinea pig Anyway, again, I'm still of the opinion that Atlanta would be the best place for the All-Star race because Atlanta is a farce, I think, as a points paying race. They go so slow around that track. And yeah, they have like the illusion of being able to pass, but everybody's just locked into this pack and they can't go anywhere. And I know people were saying this about Talladega a couple weeks ago, but even at Talladega, you had a way that you can kind of break out into two wide traffic and, see if, somebody's, going to move out of line. And yeah, we didn't really see that, a situation where somebody moved out of line this time, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen at all. In Atlanta, it's so absurd. And it has so many cautions. You have big wrecks. I think if you have stage races there, you can have like 10 or 12 stages for all I care. They have like 20 laps in them. And yeah, you're probably going to have fans just go absolutely nuts for it. And it would be hilarious because, as I said in my video a while back, the Atlanta track had an unbelievably boring All-Star race in 1986. And it'd be weird to, see it go full circle there. But I think that would be a better way of it. I think having 2 points paying races there now with that style of racing, that's just not suited to the track. And I know we keep saying, oh, it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve into something else. And maybe that's going to be better. I'm not seeing it. I'm still not. I'm really, really trying to embrace this new identity that the track has and trying not to leave it out of the conversation when talking about super speedway racing. And indeed seeing drivers like Austin Cindric who are just as capable of winning a race there as they would be at Daytona or Talladega. But man, it's been a tough sell. But I think the All-Star race should be something, it should be something that's kind of like that, where it's just for entertainment. And I think Atlanta is probably the best example that we have on the circuit right now. I think there's much more driving skill and much more competition that you see out of, say, a street course or a road course or North Wilkesboro for that matter. I think that lends itself much better to that. So I don't know if that's going to happen. It doesn't sound like things are heading that direction. I know Keselowski came out and was talking about getting rid of the Roval and having a cup race back at North Wilkesboro. And again, as I said the other day, I'm fine with that too. I think the Roval is kind of pretty played out. I think Atlanta will probably get there. I'd like to think. The problem is that, the Atlanta track is just ingrained into the track now, whereas the Roval is just a bizarre configuration on an existing oval track that's perfectly fine. We're going to have the 600 there next week. It was a worthy experiment at a time where NASCAR was very inflexible on adding new venues to the circuit way back in 2018. But things have changed since then. And now we have very, very different venues. We have international venues coming back. I think that it's served its purpose. And to Keselowski's point, I do think there's been some dramatic moments. I'd stop short of what he said about there not being any interesting moments, because there certainly have been, whether it's Kyle Larson bouncing off of every wall to get around Jeffrey Earnhardt's stalled car and make it to the next round of the playoffs, or the spin in the very first race between Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex. But I think the big problem with the Roval has always been its placement on the schedule, that it's been that fall race at Charlotte, that therefore it's been completely inseparable from the playoffs. And even having it be the playoff cutoff race, I think that there's not really as much focus on the racecraft or enjoying the competition at that track. It's just always been secondary to the playoffs and who's going to advance and who's going to screw up and lose and who's going to have a bad day. And it's not really about the track itself. It's just an obstacle course that's meant to make the playoffs more challenging. At least that's the way it's felt to me. And I got to get the sense of that from some of these drivers. They don't seem that excited. Probably the only exception, I guess, would be AJ Allmendinger for how much he's dominated the Xfinity race there. He could probably be happy with that being every week of the schedule if it were up to him. But I don't think that, I don't think that's the direction of things in general. So, but whether, if Wilkesboro does indeed get a 400 lap race next year, if it's in the spring, if it's in the fall, I would absolutely love to cover it. I'm already thinking about making another trip out to Charlotte because there's so much more I didn't do out there from our last trip. Love to see the team shops. Love to see some of the other sites out there. That would be great. I'd love to do North Wilkesboro. I'd love to do Charlotte even. Same thing too. We're not going to be doing the 600 next week. Next race for me, trackside is going to be Sears Point in July, then Phoenix in November. But yeah, I mean, I think that things sound like they're turning that direction. So that's good to see. We have clear on the tech inspection. Let's see. Sounds like we have a call on that, so that's good. Uh, da, 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 da. Sorry, folks, just checking this out here. Oh, not that one. Come on. Got it here. There it is. 3 minutes ago. Tech is clear for the All-Star race. No issues. Bell is the winner. So, again, congratulations, Christopher Bell. And, yes, Daniel Suarez will be your last place feature on the Cup Series article tonight. So, we'll have that up as well as the Open article for you later tonight. Truck Series article already posted yesterday, so you can check that out at the same time. If the teams can't travel to Mexico, it'll be the Daytona road course. I was just thinking about that, Michael. You know, I was kind of thinking the infield road course thing seems like it's played out and like it's just going to be over. And the fact that they got rid of the Daytona road course was kind of making me think that they've kind of pulled away from that. And then yes, this other information about Chicagoland. I see Andrew kind of talking about that too. Again, there was, I don't know what's going on there, but there were some trailers out front. It seemed like it was more for NHRA. But, is there a possibility of that track getting back on the circuit? And then what does that mean for the Chicago street course after this year, especially with all the strings that have had to be pulled for that event? I think next year could be a really unpredictable schedule with a lot of those moving parts there. So we'll find out if that's going to be the story at the same time. Let's see here. Yeah, I kind of covered that. Part of that there as well. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. That part two of the Cup Series race. They do this Pod's big move of the race thing. They have this big stupid graphic that gets up on the screen. Why in the hell are they doing this in the last 20 laps of the race when the battle's getting close up front and you got Joey Logano trying to get up there? I have to rewatch it again. Did they just? It looked like I couldn't tell if it was a replay of just another pass that happened earlier in the race or if they're just showing live coverage of Logano and Bell battling for the lead or something. But it's like, save that for the end of the race. First of all, you don't know what the move of the race is because the race isn't over yet. Like, I think it's dumb to have that. You can have nominees for it, kind of like what ARCA does with the Reese's sweet move of the race, and then they pick one at the end of the day. Like, that's fine. But, this is one of the many, many problems with Fox. They'll have it's like, oh, we're not going to play any commercials. We're going to go Toyota all out. And then a big stupid graphic will go over the screen anyway. And then before you actually get to the side-by-side coverage there, it's just so dumb. And all these little things that have to be, little flourishes that kind of get in the way. And, and they had their graphic that explained the rules for the All-Star race. And they played it a couple times and I had kind of a hard time following it. And then we got about, a third of the way in the race, and Last Bro's asking me, what are the rules this year? What are the rules for the All-Star race? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And that was just it. Okay, less is more. Let's try to figure out a way that's just easier to understand what's going on, especially in this, where there really wasn't that much to figure out in the All-Star race. You had a caution that's going to be about lap 100. You're going to be another caution that's going to be no later than lap 220. That's the, that's it. But we got no inversions. We got no, lotteries. We don't have to figure out the average finishing position of these different teams. We're not doing all that. They had that manufacturer thing, but nobody cared about that. Even the broadcast, they brought it up a little bit after the race was over with. Yeah. I mean, they made it pretty straightforward. They just, yeah, you got your two winners from the, from the Open. You got your fan vote winner. And then you have 250 laps for the main event. And then there you go. With two cautions, that's about it. I mean, how long does that take to explain? But I don't know. Let's see here. Chicago lasting the full contract exceeded my expectation, Ryan Idius. Yeah, I'm with you on there for sure. Kind of surprising how that played out. But yeah, apparently we're going to get that again this year. We'll see if third time's the charm in terms of the weather. But that'll be... a story coming up here. And also having it a week before Sears Point. Again, I'm predicting we're going to see some pretty battered Xfinity cars in particular coming out to the track there that week. I mean, that's going to be difficult. You got coming from, all the way from there, first of all, and then especially the smaller teams out there. I mean, what are they going to figure out? We'll see. We'll see, because we saw some pretty difficult incidents at Chicago last year. I mean, Alon Day's car was just obliterated in that race last year. But we'll find out. We'll find out. Let's see here. Yeah. So kind of crazy how that all worked out. Let's see here. What was this? Oh, yeah. Probably another way to kind of go into this here a bit. My original thought was, I still need to do the backup stream from Talladega and bring up everything that happened from that. I'm not going to do that tonight. I thought my voice was pretty good. I could feel it's still a little bit iffy here. Maybe that'll be something I'll do either later this week or see how things go into the 600 next weekend. I should just sit down and just kind of go into it. There's just a lot I want to cover on it. It probably wouldn't be that long of a show. It'd probably be only maybe about an hour tops anyway. But we'll cover into that a bit there too. I don't want to keep pushing it down the road, but it's just been such a slow process here with this. I don't get what it's been the deal there, but I guess it's just the way it plays out there. Other big stories kind of in the circuit here this past week. One thing I'm very excited about for next week, BJ McLeod getting a ride in Spire Motorsports number 07 in the Truck Series. That's absolutely huge. Got the Pigeon Forge roller coaster as the sponsorship there. It was a beautiful paint scheme that he had at Talladega a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it out the track there that much because he had a mechanical issue. It sent him behind the wall in the early stages. However, again, I think it's going to be something that's going to be very fun to watch. Spire's truck team, which, of course, is basically Kyle Busch Motorsports. They've not missed a step. They've been very fast. Carson Hocevar winning at Kansas. Kyle Busch just being Kyle Busch. I know Busch wasn't as much of a factor in the Truck Series race this week, at least in the finishing order. But BJ is going to be very excited, and it is well deserved. BJ is one of the most grounded guys in the garage area. Whenever somebody has trouble, he's always there to help. I remember when Tommy Joe Martins had a wreck at Fontana in 2020. He was the first guy there, seeing if he could do anything to help. Always a great interview as well. He was very kind to stop and talk to me in Texas, even though it was just scorchingly hot outside and we're both exhausted. But he gave me a great quote there on how they were doing there in the open event during that weekend there as well. Just a great guy. I couldn't be happier for him. For anybody else. Mike Joy made the fitting comparison to when Jimmy Means got the Hendrick ride at Charlotte in the Cup Series. Now, we certainly hope for BJ it turns out better, because for Jimmy, he got involved in an early accident and he ended up not having a good finish, and it's a moment that Dale Earnhardt Jr. still holds in infamy, I would say, in his own memory. But BJ hopefully gets a great run out there, perhaps even a win. I mean, things can only be so good. It would be great to see, because he's been at it for such a long time. NASCAR Man History, when this was announced earlier this week, posted that article from his ASA days, PJ's days, when he was just 13 years old and winning poles and races back then. How tremendous would it be to be able to pull off a victory there along the way? It would be very popular, both I would say in the stands, in the media center, and definitely the garage area. So that'll be a story this coming weekend, which already has an influx of tremendous stories. I mean, how about this Robert Schwartzman kid in the Indy 500? Of course, I know this isn't really an IndyCar show, but talking about that, the Israeli driver there pulling off the pole to the greatest spectacle in racing. I know whenever I say the 500, I mean the Daytona 500, but I will absolutely concede that the Daytona 500 is not the greatest spectacle in racing. And so whenever I talk about the Indy 500, I just say the Indy 500 in that sense there, and just a huge moment. But yeah, I mean, you got a driver with no oval experience. You got a team with no sponsorship trying to break into the sport, and they end up taking the pole. I mean, they're going to be leading the field there. Just exhilarating. I mean, it's going to be such a wonderful story for this week. And a field that's already got so much drama. You got the problems with the Penske teams and them having to kind of scrap together what was happening with the rear of their cars on the grid. You got Kyle Larson to a backup car after his incidents in practice here, having to start in the middle of the field. Should be a great day of racing there in general this weekend coming up there for Charlotte. So we talk a bit about the Truck Series race. We talk about the Indy 500. We got the Coke 600. I don't follow Formula One as closely, but of course this is always the week that people check out what's happening over in Monaco. What's McLaren's role going to be in that versus Max Verstappen's dominance. That's going to be the thing that'll be kind of the story from there too. Hopefully we get some added intrigue there as well. I don't hold my breath quite that long, but we'll see. I have to bring out my Stake F1 gear for that, I guess, too. Always have fun watching the three events there, and certainly plan to again, of course, this time around. And we'll be doing a show that Sunday as well to wrap things up there after the 600. So, but yes, congratulations to Schwartzman and Prima Motorsports on that effort. Yes, and I've seen Logan Detweiler's comment about that as well. First rookie on the pole for the 500, the Indy 500, since Teo Fabi in 1983. So congratulations there as well. Getting into the super chats here as well. Bowser Jr. XD, thank you. I saw your list there of the news stories there from other competitors and other battles throughout the field here at IndyCar and F1, Formula E. So thank you for your research on that. I'll be reviewing that as well through the week here. But seeing your super chat here for $5, thank you very much. Kind of funny how after Barry trashed ARCA and praised Cars Tour, that the Cars Tour began as a wreck fest. Don't get me started on the modified race. Now, I did not watch the Cars Tour race there, but yeah, I mean, I did hear about the crash. I saw some information on that, and I heard about Barry's comments there. I certainly disagree with him on that. About kind of viewing ARCA as just kind of just a waste of time, just having drivers develop in other formats, really looking down at the racecraft in there. I definitely disagree. I know that there is a gulf in the ARCA series between the top teams out there and the small teams, but having seen a few of these races in person in particular, and I know it's always different in person, and you want to see, what's happening there, but, that middle portion of the field is very interesting. You do have a group there that at times is able to really put it to the top teams out there, whether it's the Venturinis or the Joe Gibbs efforts or anything like that. And there is such a wonderful group there among the slower teams of these underdog drivers. I didn't count on it when we did the Talladega coverage. I didn't count on doing more ARCA coverage really than anything else that weekend. It was ARCA mostly, and then Xfinity, and then a little bit of Cup. But the ARCA guys were wonderful to talk to, talking to Alex Clubb, talking to the crew members over at Brad Smith's team, Brayton Laster, talking to Ben Peterson, grandson of Wayne Peterson, the ageless driver there that's the military veteran that is still active in the sport there as well. It's a wonderful group of people out there, and they don't deserve being talked down to. So I definitely disagree with Josh Berry's take on that. I think every racing series has its own intrigue to it. There's definitely parts that every one of these series could do better on. There's things that they're working on. I mean, certainly the Cup Series is, Formula One is, and IndyCar is. They all have things that fans do and do not like about them there. But I agree that, yeah, we shouldn't be having people tear down one series over another. And just respect the talent that's out there. Lawless Allen was absolutely over the moon when he won that Talladega race, and talking about how he and Thad Moffitt were just keeping the throttle wide open because neither of them wanted to concede the win. They wanted to make sure that, whoever was ahead of the other was going to be the winner. And it made for a great write-up. I co-wrote the article with Arben Schneider on the Last Car Info page there for Talladega's write-up, and it was very enjoyable too because we had some great insight as to what's happening there. Also, the ARCA series is where Spencer Gallagher is returning to the circuit as well. We haven't heard from him in a number of years. Talking about Derek White, where we haven't heard from him. Spencer Gallagher getting back into stock car racing. Was very excited to be back at Rockingham. Saw him again at Talladega. Unfortunately, Talladega was a bit of a rougher day there with a flat tire that put him in the outside wall. But again, good to see teams able to really put on a show out there. And some shows are going to be, better than others or maybe more competitive than others. But they definitely all, deserve to be out there too. Yeah, Death Killer. No, thank you for your comment as well. Yep, I'm doing okay. Still coming off this. It's probably I don't know why it's taking this long, but it's probably gonna be another week or so before fully get the edge off here on this. But we'll work our way through. I at least feel capable of doing a show here. Whereas last week it was really bad. I probably shouldn't have done a show last week, but had a lot of ground to make up on, and I don't want to fall off the face of the earth completely on this. So we'll see. Michael Jensen, thank you for your super chat as well for $5. Fox's last race for this year. Do you see more streaming services next TV deal? 200 million plus have Prime, 68 million and dropping have cable. Again, it's very possible. Streaming does seem to be still the direction of it. I think what we've seen from NASCAR and the broadcast partners is, yeah, they're going to go for the cheapest option. They're just like any other business. It's why they do these remote broadcasts, even if it's like you got a group in Florida that's already there and they got to go back to Charlotte to do it from studio, even though they're in Florida for the races in Florida. In those cases, I think they need to have some common sense brought into the factor there as well. It's just also going to depend on, how the quality of these broadcasts are doing. I like that these networks in general are trying some different things very slowly. Things move very, very slow in the TV broadcast arena here. I thought Josh Sims did a very solid job doing the Chris Myers role. I've been kind of concerned about Chris Myers these last few weeks, to be perfectly honest. Not just the whole, the thing he did with the kangaroo there and him and Jimmy McMurray, and, animal acts are always rough whenever, they have that in anything in TV. But he was kind of on this vector, this ramble during that, where he's like, oh my God, is he trying to get himself moved to another job or something like that? I don't know what it is, but he just seems like really out of it. And I don't know if it's his age or he's just not interested in the sport or what. But it seems like Fox tuned into that too by bringing Josh out. And I thought, Josh wasn't anything really that spectacular, but he kept it pretty straightforward. He didn't do any, crazy flourishes. He wasn't goofing around and laughing like, guys like Adam Alexander and Jamie Little do. I thought he was very professional. I thought he handled it very well. And if I hope he gets more chances to do it so he can find his own voice and, get more comfortable in the role. Because, he fit in just fine with talking with Harvick and Boyer and McMurray. That's a high-powered group. I think McMurray in particular has really come into his own in the CW, in the booth there, to the point where I think that he and Parker Kligerman could really do the broadcast without Adam Alexander even in there, honestly. But I think that's where we are. And this kind of leads me to another thought that I had. One other, when we were traveling back from the Talladega trip, we tried to catch up on a lot of the podcasts. So one of the ones I listened to was Rick Allen's interview on the Dale Jr. download. And I came away with that with a few thoughts. Now, I've certainly been outspoken on Rick Allen himself and the quality of his broadcast and the frustration between the fact that he has a fantastic radio voice, like he has, and a fantastic look. Like, he's a former athlete, he's got the look, he's got the voice. And I do think he has somewhat of an interest in NASCAR to be a really good voice of the sport. And to the point where, when he gets stepped out of the booth, you have Michael Jordan coming up to him and saying, hey, you're the voice of NASCAR. What happened? And people wondering what was going on. But my frustration is I think there's just waste there. And I've tried to figure out what the source of that is, because it's always like, oh, the number turns the other number. And it's, it's always so-and-so on the inside, so-and-so on the outside. And it's always kind of the same, he kind of gets outfoxed by the action a bit. I mean, it's similar to Adam Alexander. Maybe not, Adam Alexander has kind of different issues there. But I've not been a big Rick Allen fan. It seems like he kind of gets into his comfort zone. And that's where he's just going to be. And, and I think the thing that I kind of discovered from that interview was he's a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy. And I don't doubt this. I think that, I think that, yeah, he's very down to earth. He's had this great experience, broadcasting this and that and different sports and whatnot. But being a nice guy is maybe not always the best thing in the media world, especially I would say in the broadcast media world where it's very cutthroat and you got different people up there. And I think that Rick was very, I don't think he was very easy on himself in his description of that when he was saying that he should have spoke out for himself more in that. And I think that, when he had Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Letarte in the booth and Jeff Burton and all that, it was already a very crowded booth. And then you got like things start moving and Dale Jr. wants to do the play-by-play. He really should have stood up for himself, I think, in that case, and not been like, oh yeah, Junior, that's okay. Yeah, you can do the call. I don't see that happening with a Mike Joy. I don't see that. I think, I don't see that happening with like, some of these other broadcasters out there. I think they would have been like, no, I got this. It's like, this is, that's the brass ring, is having that position. But once you're up there, everybody's out to get it, and I don't think there was anything sinister or anything like that with Junior either. And Junior did, I think, a solid job with the play-by-play and was also very transparent about his own abilities and saying, look, I'm glad I had that exposure because that showed me like how difficult Rick Allen's job was and showed that I couldn't do it, or at least not in his current ability there. And I was appreciative of him bringing that up in that interview too. But I think that, maybe a reputation started around that time that they could just move Rick Allen wherever. And when that happened, I think that that's probably why, the Lee Diffie thing happened and him getting brought in there and taking his place. And I hate it for Rick in the sense that people think that he did something wrong. Because, even I'll say, look, it's not like he did anything wrong. I just think that they needed to try somebody. There was just a missing element there. There's just a missing element that needed to be there. And again, it's that ability to do a really good play-by-play that you're going to want to listen to over and over again. I've said several times on this show, especially since last year, how many times I've listened to Lee Diffie do that call of Harrison Burton's win at Daytona, of Tyler Reddick's last lap pass at Homestead. I can't remember the last time I've done that with Rick Allen. Probably 2016 with his call of you move over Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty and the 7-time champion thing. That was probably the best Rick Allen call. But that was in 2016. And the other thing you got to keep in mind is Rick Allen got to do this for like a decade, pretty much. I mean, just short of a decade, 9 years? That's a long time. If you think about, Bob Jenkins only got to do classic ESPN for 20 years. And now we have the current Fox group that's done it even longer. That's still a long time in the aspect of it. And, if they want to move the needle or if they're getting something from here or they got to move people in different places, I still think Rick Allen would be a great host. He kind of fits in that same section as, kind of like, like Chris Myers, although Chris Myers has kind of been a bit faulty lately, like Adam Alexander, who I think would be an outstanding host, as he had been on NASCAR Race Hub, which I think it's stupid that they got rid of that show. But again, I think there's just that little bit missing. And it was interesting to hear it from him himself, because I think he was aware of that too. Maybe not 100% aware of like the cause and effect of it, but the way he described it, it kind of filled in the blanks for me. So again, it's nothing against Rick himself. I do think he's a great guy. I think if you talk to him, like you see him at the Kyle Petty Ride Across America, and he's there with Kenny Wallace and Kyle Petty and stuff, and they're having a great time. I'm sure he's a hoot, but I just think that in the booth, they really can't just keep rearranging the same people. They really got to bring different people in. And this brings me to Eric Brennan, who this weekend in the Cars Tour was outstanding. Again, very engaging, brought the same action to it. I thought he did a fantastic job, just like he did at ARCA at Iowa last year. I thought that he was very engaging, really kind of made you understand what was happening moment to moment. And this was something that Benny Parsons always brought up. And I think it got brought up in, I believe it was Mike Joy's interview on Kevin Harvick's podcast or one of those other ones as well. It's like, did you tell the story of the race? And see, that's the thing. It's like, it's telling the story of the race is not the same as like a reaction video, which I think is what people like Rick Allen and Adam Alexander and Jamie Little kind of do. It's really is like contextualizing in the moment. The Truck Series finish, I didn't really talk about this angle of it there. Perfect example. You have a dramatic finish here where the dominant truck is spun out. You got teammates battling each other. One of them swings around and actually gets the first win for that team, and what's going on there. You think about Bob Jenkins in 1989, how his voice went up several octaves because he did that, and both of them spin moment. That really needed to come out. I liked that Jamie Little brought up that there were teammates at least, but it was still just too erratic and just not enough there. You got to jump in there and just do it. And it's easy for me to say from this big yellow chair when it's not in the moment and it's not that time, but you know it when you hear it. And that's really a big aspect of it. So I'm glad the discussion is still ongoing. And again, maybe the deal with like Josh Sims being brought into kind of the Chris Myers role is maybe another example of this, that, maybe they are finally looking to try some different things. Better late than never, right at the end of the Fox portion of the schedule. And kind of going back to your comment there, Michael Jensen. What is going to be the direction of this? Again, it's going to be what's going to be the most affordable. If streaming platforms are going to be more affordable, if it's, again, I still think the best way that any of these can do is you got to make sure that you're bringing people to the track. You got to make sure that there's some activation there. Because that happens organically. You have to make sure that all of that is in place. That's how you get people in the grandstands where they have a sign where it says like Earnhardt sitting pretty now, and it spells out ESPN, where the broadcast is that beloved. I don't think you really see that with Fox these days, and, or even NBC in that sense, and will we get there with Amazon, or will we get there with TNT? I don't know. But it's going to be an interesting few weeks to find out. And the 600 is going to be, a big marquee event to try to really take that on. So, I don't know what the long-term direction is, but I hope, at the very least, they got to bring in some new talent. They have to. Apparently, they had an audio engineer that was retiring from Fox today. We already had the information about Artie Kempner earlier this year as well. There's going to have to be new people brought in there. What are they going to bring to the table? I guess we'll see in Daytona next year. But that's the other thing that, has to be kind of figured out at the same time. But we'll see. We'll see. Beast of Metal 1989, thank you for your super chat as well. Bigger gaff in sports tonight. The LeBron Mapletrons shriveling up in Game 7 yet again, or Michael Waltrip fumbling the caution flag. I don't know. I don't follow hockey as close there. So again, I'm just reading the super chat here, not endorsing it. I guess I assume you're talking about NHL here. I don't follow them too closely there, but I got to say, Michael Waltrip dropping the caution flag was funny, and I called it. I should have tweeted it. I said it to Lastbro. I said, I swear, he's building it up too much. He's going to drop that caution flag. He's going to drop it. It's like, look, he's standing around there. He's like a kid. He's like poking the officials on the shoulder, and he's waving like, it's the you remember the pie pod on, oh God, it's a deep cut. What would you do? The old Mark Summers show on Nickelodeon. And they'd say, oh, do you want to have this contestant get hit in the face with 1 pie, 2, or 3? And of course, everyone is going to do 3. It's like, what are you going to do? But Michael Waltrip's like, 5 laps in the caution, or 4, or am I going to wait till the last second? It's like, of course you're going to wait till towards the end of it. Like, come on. So, so of course there was so much excitement. And then of course he drops the flag because that's the only way it could have been that funny. But I should have tweeted it because I totally called it there before that. But I know it's just hearsay at this point. But yeah. I got to say, I was laughing. That's probably why I started to lose my voice a little bit again. But that'll be there too. Yeah, Bowser Jr. XD, thank you again for my notes on the other last place finishes are so long they may need a letter grade. Yeah, again, no, thank you so much again for the notes on this as well. You don't have to be that comprehensive on there as well, but I do appreciate the additional context there as well. It's good to see so many people so passionate about what happens at the back of the field. I always find it interesting too. I didn't really expect to kind of follow what was going on in the Truck Series race there on Saturday. Ultimately, it kind of worked out that way where, we kind of got a gap between different events out there. By the way, really enjoyed that too. I know this is well outside of it there at the same time. But Last Pro's a big fan of the World's Strongest Man competition. He's followed it for many years. And they usually have it just take place overseas. But the last couple of years, they've had it out here in Sacramento, which again, is not too far from here at LASCAR headquarters. They don't advertise it too well, but it's probably the most laid back experience I've had at a sporting event, because what they do is if you watch it on TV, it looks like it's constant action. You talk about it like a Nickelodeon game show. It's like they do this, and then they do this, and they do this, and this, but it's spread out over like 4 days, and they only do like 2 or 3 events each day, and each event probably only takes maybe like 45 minutes to do. So if you're there for a day, we were there yesterday. We were there for 3 different events. They had one at like 10 o'clock, one at I think it was like 11. Then they had a lunch break, and then they had another one. Oh, I guess, yeah, what was it? Maybe it was like 10, 1, and 4. It was almost like movie times. But it was great. They had a seating area, but the tickets were kind of expensive, so we didn't sit in there. And then they had like a picnic grounds behind it, and that's where we were sitting with like the big screen and stuff. And yeah, it was fun. You could see them hoisting dumpsters up in the air on pulleys. They had like barbells and stuff. They were doing deadlifts. And they had, at the end, they had the Hercules hold where they had to pull up. You got the 2 big columns falling over. You're chained to them and you're trying to hold your arms like straight out. A lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. We got some, they were giving out free t-shirts and stuff for it there. That was fun. And yeah, it was pretty cool. They even had a physical therapy display there, which was interesting because actually I work with physical therapists during my day job there as well. So maybe we'll work something out with that there too. So you never know. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. It was definitely different. It's definitely different speed than going to a racetrack and everything's just quick this, and you're running around here and there and all that. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I definitely have to say. I don't know if they're coming back out here again. I think they did their last day of events just today. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to check it out, if it's ever in your area, I'd recommend checking it out for sure. Bean Boy 89, interesting comment here too. Rick Allen seems like Marty Reed to me, very passionate and a good broadcaster, but maybe not a great fit with NASCAR. That's a fair assessment. The only exception I'd make is, for some reason, Rick Allen was really, really good with the truck series. Really good. Like maybe he just fit really well with that era, with like Todd Bodine and see, just saying that name now, saying Todd Bodine, I could picture hearing it in Rick Allen's voice. See, that shows that you're doing something right. When you become such a part of the experience of watching the races that they can't imagine you not being a part of it, and this is where Jamie Little just isn't up to that same level. If I say Donnie Leah, I could bet you that you're probably thinking right now, if you're a longtime follower of the truck series, you're thinking of that finish at Mansfield and him, winning that race in that 71 truck there for the Racers group. Huge events there. He was really good at that. And he needed to just bring that to the Cup Series. And I don't know if it's just bad direction or what, but it just didn't feel the same. And I was very enthusiastic, very supportive when he came in there in 2015. It just hasn't quite worked out, and that's where you got to try different things. But, yeah, I mean, if he tried trucks again, maybe things just kick back into gear again. I don't know. I have a feeling that the remote broadcast would still be a problem for him. But I don't know. Maybe things go full circle and he figures it out. The other thing I took from his interview on the Junior podcast is that's a man who's going to land on his feet. When he's on, I like that he's on, nickname basis with his friends. Anybody calls him Schwiegs, like reference to his original name Schwieger, and talking about his furniture business. He's building furniture, fixing up chairs for Dale Earnhardt Jr. That's still here, like at Bowman Gray Stadium. I don't know if he's still doing it. I don't think we've heard that lately, but that could be another part of it. Oh, Jude Fernandez, can't forget when Chris Myers ate that hot dog at Martin's. Yeah, that too. He just looks like he's old and grumpy and doesn't want to be there, and it's just kind of over it. I just feel like he's about to walk off every time he's out there doing these segments. And I feel so bad for McMurray because he's trying to keep a straight face, but you can tell he's just like, he's trying to work with him, and he's just like, what am I doing here? And it's a shame because McMurray is so good. If you get somebody right there with him, just like Parker Kligerman's been in the CW booth, McMurray would be outstanding. I think he's one of the best analysts we have right now. And it's a thrill because having seen him come up through the ranks in the Cup Series, seeing him be, I've always found him to be kind of a quiet interview. I've only had a couple opportunities to speak with him there. But he's really come out of his shell in the booth. And I think that's probably where he's always wanted to be. And he's always been kind of reminds me of Derek Cope a little bit, actually. I think that's actually a pretty good comparison. Very, very mindful of his image, very kind of corporate in that sense. I don't mean that in a negative sense, because you have to have some people that are good in that environment, because you got to look good on TV and you got to convey information and you got to be believable and you got to be this and that. And I think he's really, really good at that. He hits those buttons really well. I think that's important. And I'm very excited for what he comes up to. Kligerman, the same way. Very personable, very knowledgeable, almost obsessive when it comes to little details. And again, that's why I think he and McMurray could pretty much just do the booth themselves for the CW. I can't wait till we get back to Xfinity this week. Feels like it's been way, way longer than just the couple weeks it's been since we had the last Xfinity Series race. Yes, Team F Tint Hub. Yes, thank you for bringing up Brad Smith with his best ever finish of 8th yesterday. Congratulations to him. I think there was some posts about that for him and the 48 effort. Great job for him. And great job for Takuma Koga for the 3rd place finish out there. Outstanding. Here's a driver that usually see him come out here in the ARCA West series. Kind of like we see with a lot of Japanese drivers out there. It seems like they get a good fan base out there because they're always very personable, and they always, you think about Takuma Sato in IndyCar, you think about Akinori Ogata and how active he's been in developing his truck series program, and Takuma Koga very much the same way on the West Coast circuit. And then in this race here, getting a 3rd place finish, I don't care how many cars are out there. It's, again, I wouldn't put, I know some people put asterisks and stuff on that. They shouldn't, because that was a great run out there. It's still a challenging field. You still got to get to the finish to get there. And he did it. I'm glad he got an interview out of it, and he definitely deserved it. So congratulations to the both of them. I'd love to cover more ARCA races. I think the ARCA garage looks much more like I remembered the Cup garage being, at least in the 90s. And, less so more in the time I've been in the media center. But certainly back then, when you had the smaller teams working in tents or working outside. It's really interesting to see. And these guys are out there on the same tracks that the Cup guys. And, they're in Flat Rock this week for ARCA. But still, you had a lot of Cup drivers work their way through that rank too. Gary Bradbury, that's where he had his famous run out there, where with the stolen car weekend, I believe, was there, where he lost the car, got it back, went out there without practice, and won the race. I think that was really interesting. Let's see here. Good run for Kemp, too. Started 2nd and finished 4th. I think Kemp was, that's right. I think Kemp was the guy I talked to at Talladega. Was there as well. But Kemp was, for driving for Andy Hillenberg. By the way, I hope you guys enjoyed the quote I got from Hillenberg, too. That was the other thing. That was the brief interview I got with him after the Talladega ARCA race. And I couldn't help but cross paths with him because we had tried to do an interview for the field filler episode on Stan Hoover Motorsports. He politely declined. He said just that wasn't a fun time in his career. But he did talk about after I got the story about the pizza battle from Andy Belmont, I definitely had to get his side of it. And he was very happy to agree on giving the interview. So big thanks to him on that. If you haven't read that interview, it's on my Twitter page here. I posted it just before the Open this evening. So at Last Car on Brock. So you got to get that side of the story there as well. Very, very much enjoyable there at the same time. And he says he follows the site. He follows the site in the feed. So I appreciate that as well. I know our ARCA correspondent, Ben Schneider, appreciates that. And William Saki, our other IndyCar correspondent for the website, appreciate that at the same time. So it's good to see how many people in the industry follow the Last Card on Info page. So very excited about that. Let's see here. Yeah, Michael, I'm with you about, the streaming services, the monthly fees versus cable. I mean, it does seem like the streaming stuff's turning into cable in a sense because everybody has like the same ones that they always go back to. We're kind of grappling with this just as much as everybody else is. We have Hulu, so we have FS1 and FS2. So that helps out. And then we had to do Paramount, and we did Amazon, and then I subscribed to Peacock, so we had that also. It's just so much, but yeah. It's always tricky to kind of figure all that out. But I'm sure I'm not alone in that too. Let's see here. Okay, got that one. Did I miss this one? I think I missed one here. No, I got Beast of Metals. I got you too. I think we got everybody here. If I missed your super chat, I apologize. Let me make sure I don't miss anyone. I don't want anybody not getting their thing read up here at the same time. Does the Xfinity have staying power at Sonoma? You mean the Xfinity series, or are you talking about Xfinity cable, Andrew? I'm not sure. The series, I hope it stays at Sears Point. I think they put on a great show out there for sure. They've been so much fun to watch. Ryan Roulette being an active duty bomber pilot. There you go. Yep, very passionate about the Veterans Affairs as well and his sponsorship. So, yeah, again, really interesting drivers throughout the field here. So we'll see what the stories are coming out ahead there at the same time. Yeah, ready. I'll tell you what, let me do a couple of trivia questions here. In the meantime, I'm going to get some water here in just a moment, and we'll do a couple here to wrap up, because I know we haven't done that in a little while, so we'll do that up here at the same time. If there's any other things, I need to check my notes, other storylines. I know I've been still in catch-up mode on that. Yeah, I'm going to hang on to that a little bit. Yeah, so I'll be back in just a moment here, folks. Actually, I'll put up the loading screen, and then I'll come back. Hang on here, folks. Actually, on second thought, while I have the loading screen up, let's pick the category for the trivia deal. We'll bring this up here. So again, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So once again, those categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Go ahead and pick which category you'd like. I'm going to step away for just a moment here, and then we'll be back here for that portion of the show. So hang on here, folks. and gentlemen. So we're back here a little bit. Another thing I want to mention. Oh, okay, sounds a little bit clear. Nope, spoke too soon. So ordinarily, this was originally going to be the show where I was going to announce the winners in the Cartoon Network Wacky Racing Contest that I announced back in April when we were on the road out to Rockingham and Talladega. I have since extended this. I made an announcement about this on Twitter, I believe, a week ago. But yes, that's going to be extended through Friday, May 30th. We're actually still getting some submissions. I believe we have more than 20 at this point here. Another reason I wanted to do that was I wanted to have the announcement be on a Sunday afternoon show. So it'd be during the day, more people could watch it rather than make them stay up really late, either on this show or the one for the 600, which is going to be really late at night after already so much stuff happening. The other reason is it allows me to work on another project that I have in conjunction with these paint schemes that I'd like to have ready for the channel here in the meantime. If you want more details on that, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. I had a statement about that earlier this week. Also, if you are in the Patreon, make sure that you stop by very soon, because in the next couple of days, a poll is going to close as to which is going to be the next starting grid video I'm going to be doing this season. We reached another benchmark earlier this year to do another starting grid video, first one since the Daytona 500 this year. And we have some votes on that. So if you want to make sure your vote counts on there, make sure you jump into that. I've only heard from, I believe, about 17 or 18 voters so far. So definitely many people in the Patreon. Definitely check that out. I want to make sure people get all the full benefit of their benefits as well. Big thanks to those of you who joined the Patreon as well. I did do the magnet giveaways finally just the other day. Both the videos have been posted. I did a separate one for the Rockingham magnet and one for the Talladega magnet. Made sure to send those out. I actually got some envelopes just today to help send all that out this week here. But congratulations to everybody that won the prizes from that. I want to kind of make that the norm when I do, not taking a long time to post it, but doing the first, second, and third place prizes there. I had some extra hero cards that I collected, including some that I picked up from the Petty Museum. Some signed by Richard Petty, some signed by Kyle Petty, that I picked up from the gift shop, that I included those in the giveaways as well. So I had some of those. So everybody that won one of the prizes there is getting one of those as well. So if you haven't checked out those videos yet, those are here again on this Twitter feed. You can check those out. You also get to see Badger in those as well. Last Dog is also in those videos because I was setting him up on my bed the other day, and he was kind of walking around there. So you had that little bit of a part of the story there too, I suppose. So the Cartoon Network contest, beyond that, is going to end on May 30th. The announcement of the top 3 winners is going to be during the stream after Nashville, which is going to be on June 1st. Again, a lot of great candidates. It's going to be very, very tricky to pick out the top 3. I could say already from this. And if we get any more entries here in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be just that much more challenging. But I think a lot of people's art is getting featured here, which is very good to see. And yeah, hopefully that stays the same here as well. So we just have a couple votes on categories here. I have one for tracks, one for wild card. We can go ahead and just pick one up here in the meantime. Oh, I have a little something for show and tell here too. While everybody's picking, go ahead and keep going with your votes here for which category you'd like me to do some trivia questions here. I'll wrap up with that tonight. And again, so NASCAR pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Go ahead and pick which category you'd like, and we'll do some questions from there. One thing I want to show you is a little something I picked up on the road back from the Rockingham and Talladega trip. We did have the good fortune of meeting some of the people that get featured here on social media that are diecast sales there as well. Booth 34, for example, talking with Zach and the folks over there was really, really cool. They were very, very gracious in helping set up our second tweet up that we had at the burger restaurant there next door. We had a great time out there. We actually had a number of people show up. I wasn't sure who would show up there for that, but that worked out very well. So big thanks to Zach over there. And I also went over to Mead Motorsports at Rockingham, and I picked up this bad boy over here. So check this out. I had to. Last bro and I saw this, and it definitely brought back some good memories here. This one is a 2003 Jimmy Spencer autographed on the roof of the car. Very, very beautiful piece here. And it's a really nice shape there, too. So good to see. Again, you kind of got that transition there with the Dodge nose where you have kind of part of the 2004 Stratus nose and then the old Intrepid grill down there. Nice paint scheme. Definitely an underrated one there as well. You don't really see throwbacks to this one done as much. This is back when the dog logo for Sirius, Darrell Waltrip nicknamed it Mongo. And so that was really very big that year. Almost won Bristol again. Unfortunately, got in an incident there that dropped him further down the rankings. But yeah, pick this up. They had great prices there. We got this one for 40 over there with a little medallion and the opera windows and everything there. I thought that was a really cool piece. So big thanks to Mead Motorsports there as well. All right. So we got one for drivers. Okay. So let's just jump into some here. We'll hop between them here. Let's go ahead and do a driver's question here. Let's see. First question here, folks. What driver won the most money in 1972 but did not win the championship? What driver won the most money in 1972 but did not win the championship? That is the first question. Yeah, was it? Oh, was he get trapped on pit road? I remember it was something. I seem to have a memory in my mind of that Sirius logo getting kind of crumpled up on the hood of his car. Maybe it was just cosmetic damage. But I thought it was a wreck there. But yeah, maybe it was pit road then. Hey there, Kyle. Thank you for tuning in. Just wrap it up here with some trivia questions. What driver won the most money in 1972 but did not win the championship? As you can see, I am wearing the Kyle Larson Terry Labonte scheme that just did so terrible at Darlington the other week. Last bro was ribbing me endlessly about that, about picking him for that race when he had the crash at the beginning. He came back out 100 plus laps down and then crashed again and still managed to not finish in last place. So definitely wanted to commemorate that here too. I was surprised they weren't marking the shirts down after that run, but they had that at Talladega, so I definitely had to pick that up. What driver won the most money in 1972 but did not win the championships? We're talking about Cup championship. Of course, we had a couple guesses here for Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, David Pearson. All good guesses. The answer is Bobby Allison. Jude Fernandez, you got it. That is the correct answer. We'll do one of each here. We'll do a wild card and then we'll do a tracks to wrap up here. Here we go. Here's a good question. Who was NASCAR's most popular driver in the modified series from 1991 through 1993? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. Who was NASCAR's most popular driver in the modified series from 1991 through 1993? Darlington, last race John Edwards was at. He was a great guy. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. John Edwards and Hendrick. Okay, I didn't connect right away. Somehow I was thinking Wayne Edwards for the truck series. Yes, exactly. And yeah, it was part of this promo too, actually. Indeed. That's probably why, this design has other sentimental value there as well, as, him being part of that promotion there at Hendrick. Yes. Yeah. Again, unfortunately, I never got to meet him. Hendrick guys don't usually finish last, so I never had the good fortune there of meeting Mr. Edwards there. But yeah, that definitely brings that up there too. Oh yeah, Kyle. Yeah, I saw a glimpse there of the I-80 series, not the Bay Bridge series. Yeah. No, I have washed my hands of that. That's that game from last September's last one I've done on that. So we'll see. There may be another team in the future, but we'll find out. Until then, I'm basically a Montreal Expos fan at this point, knowing full well they're also gone. But there you go. Who is NASCAR's most popular driver in the modified series from 1991 through 1993? I guess is for Steve Park and Jimmy Spencer and Burt Myers and Eetu Luostarinen. I tried to run at that, the first one there. Eetu Luostarinen. Am I close? Eetu Luostarinen. I'm going to go with that. That came up on my teleprompter. I'll be like, oh, you think you got it, and then you realize how steep the mountain is. All right, let's find out. NASCAR's most popular driver in modifieds from 1991 to 1993. The answer is Jeff Fuller. Jeff Fuller had quite the career in modifieds. The more I hear about it, you know, his Busch career and certainly his Cup career is much more brief. Did win at Bristol in the Sunoco car there. But yeah, his modified career is definitely worth mentioning there. Yeah, nobody got that one. That was a trickier one. All right, we'll do a tracks question, then we'll probably wrap up here for this evening. Oh. Okay, last question for this evening, folks. Who won the first NASCAR race at Michigan International Speedway? Who won the first NASCAR race at Michigan International Speedway? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. Yeah, Jeff Fuller. Yep, he did have the Xfinity last place record for Jeff Green. Demolished it. You're right, Beast of Metal. Yep, because he drove the second Nemco car for many years. And, yep, that was definitely the situation. Who won the first NASCAR race at Michigan International Speedway is the question. You got the picture here of the manufacturer's trophy that the Chevy teams won there. They don't really seem to know what to do. I don't see Kyle Larson in this picture either. It's just like, no, we're kind of over it. Who won the first NASCAR race at Michigan International Speedway? I guess is for Petty, Pearson, Foyt, Gant, TJ, so Dale Jarrett. Let's see. I've heard 3 different pronunciations, and none of them were really that. Okay, never mind. That's too challenging for me, man. Is it EA2 instead of E2? The 2 E's, maybe if it was 1 E, it would be. If I saw 1 E, I think A2. Or I don't know. That's a hard one. Who won the first NASCAR race? I'll have to look that one up. At Michigan International Speedway, the answer is Cale Yarborough. They call him Cale. Cale Yarborough is the correct answer. I think that is it. I don't think anybody got that one. Tricky. Alrighty, well, folks, I'm going to go ahead and let it go there at that point. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for the show tonight. Congratulations to Christopher Bell for pulling off his win in the All-Star race tonight. Daniel Suarez will be your last place finisher for the All-Star race, so we'll have that up for you later tonight, as well as Chad Fincham, the last place finisher from the Open. So we'll have that all covered for you here at the same time. In the meantime, my Twitter feed is at LastCarOnBrock. My Patreon is patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. More content coming up to the video channel soon. I've been working on some scripts lately and getting back into the swing of things here after the trip. Our next stream, now, I was thinking, I'm still kind of midway on this. I feel kind of okay after this one. But I think I might give myself a day here just to make sure everything's good. I'm thinking about doing a short stream this Tuesday night about 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, and that's what I'm going to finally do, a Talladega wrap-up show, only about a month after the race itself, so very, very late on the storylines from that, but I do have a lot to talk about from that race weekend and to kind of get into. Hopefully the allergies cooperate and everything, and we go through that. So my plan is to do a show on Tuesday, and then the next show after that, of course, will be on Sunday night after the 600, and we'll talk about the greatest weekend in racing. So we'll get into that at the same time. It's probably a good time to kind of catch up on that. So this coming Tuesday, that would be the 20th. Planning on doing a stream, maybe just a brief stream there to kind of talk about Talladega and the second half of our trip there after Rockingham, basically from Easter until when we got home. And yeah, kind of catch up on that. I teased a couple bits of it from this today, but I think that'd be a good time to jump into it. So hope to see you guys there as well. So have a great weekend, folks, or well, great last bit of the weekend there. Have a safe week, and I will see you all next time. Take care, folks.